When I was 9 years old, I discovered something strange about myself, something I didn't understand, something that would change my life forever. It all began one cool October evening. The streets were quiet as I walked home from school. Leaves rustled in the breeze, and the sun was just setting, painting the sky orange and purple. But the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. I kept looking over my shoulder. I could feel it. Someone was watching me. Yet every time I turned around, there was no one. When I got home, my mom greeted me with her usual smile. She was in the kitchen making dinner. The smell of lasagna filled the air. "How was school, Cole?" she asked, her voice warm. I wanted to tell her what I had felt on the way home, though I didn't. Instead, I forced a smile and said, "It was fine." But it wasn't fine. Something wasn't right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room was dark, but shadows danced along the walls. And then I heard it. A faint whisper, soft, like a breeze. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. "Who's there?" I managed to whisper. The sound stopped. For a moment, all was silent. But then, I saw him. A boy, about my age, standing in the corner of my room. His face was pale and his clothes were torn. But it was his eyes that scared me the most. They were filled with sadness and something else, something I couldn't understand. I wanted to scream, but my voice was stuck. I couldn't move. The boy stepped closer. He raised his hand and whispered, "Help me." I blinked, and he was gone. The next morning, I told my mom. "There was a boy in my room last night," I said, my voice shaky. She frowned and knelt down beside me. "Cole, there's no one here but us," she said gently. "It was just a bad dream." But it didn't feel like a dream. At school, things didn't get better. I was sitting in class, trying to focus on math, but my mind kept drifting back to the boy. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around, and there she was, a little girl no older than 6. Her hair was messy and her dress was covered in dirt. She looked at me with wide, tearful eyes. "Why won't you help me?" she whispered. I gasped and jumped out of my chair. Everyone in the room turned to stare at me. "Cold, are you okay?" the teacher asked. I nodded quickly, though my hands were trembling. "I'm fine," I mumbled, sitting back down, but I wasn't fine. That evening, I sat in my room, hugging my knees. I kept thinking about the boy and the girl. Who were they? What did they want? I decided to tell my mom again. "Mom, I keep seeing people, a boy, a girl. They're asking for help." She sighed and gave me a worried look. "Cole, you've been under a lot of stress. It's probably your imagination." But I knew it wasn't my imagination. I could feel it. One night, I was sitting in the living room. The TV was on, playing one of my favorite shows, but I wasn't watching it. I was too distracted, thinking about the whispers, the shadows, the eyes, and then the TV turned off by itself. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. "Mom?" I called out, my voice shaking. There was no response. I looked back at the TV, and then I saw it, a face. The boy's face. He was staring at me from inside the screen. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I leaned closer, trying to hear him. And then, suddenly, "Help us, Cole," he said, his voice loud and clear. "Please, help us." I ran out of the room, my heart racing. I didn't stop until I reached my bedroom. I locked the door and crawled under the blankets. I stayed there for hours, too scared to move. The next day, my mom noticed I was quieter than usual. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't want to talk about it," I said softly. She sighed and put her hand on my shoulder. "I think it's time we talk to someone who can help," she said. That's when I met Dr. Malcolm. He was a child psychologist, a kind man with gentle eyes and a calming voice. He asked me to sit down and tell him what was going on. At first, I hesitated. I didn't think he'd believe me. But then, I told him everything. About the boy in my room, the girl at school, the whispers, the shadows, the faces. When I was done, Dr. Malcolm leaned back in his chair. "Cole," he said softly, "do you see things that other people don't see?" I looked down at my hands. Then I nodded. "Yes," I whispered. Dr. Malcolm didn't look shocked or worried. He didn't tell me I was crazy. Instead, he said, "It's okay, Cole. Sometimes people have special gifts." I didn't feel like it was a gift. It felt like a curse. After meeting Dr. Malcolm, things started to change, not in the way I had hoped, but in ways I could never have imagined. The whispers didn't stop. The shadows didn't disappear. But now I had someone to talk to, someone who didn't tell me I was crazy. One evening, I was sitting in my room. I had been thinking about what Dr. Malcolm said. Maybe it's a gift, he had told me. But how could something so terrifying, something so exhausting, be a gift? As I sat there, lost in thought, the lights in my room began to flicker. I froze. I knew what was coming. Then the closet door creaked open. Slowly, I held my breath. Inside the dark closet, I saw him again. The boy. He stepped out, his pale face lit by the faint glow of the moon. He looked at me, pleadingly. "Why won't you help us?" he whispered. I swallowed hard. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. The boy tilted his head. then pointed towards the window. "They're waiting," he said. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside. I don't even remember walking out of the house. The air was cold and the night was silent, too silent. And then I saw them, a group of figures standing in the distance. Their faces were pale and their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. I wanted to run, but something kept me rooted to the spot. One by one, they stepped closer. Each of them had a story. The first was a man with a deep scar across his face. "I need them to know," he said, "to know what really happened." The second was a woman in a tattered dress. "They never found me," she whispered. And the last was the boy, the one who had been in my room. "You can help us, Cole. You're the only one who can." I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do, but I nodded. "I'll try," I said. The next day, I told Dr. Malcolm about what had happened. He listened carefully, then asked, "Do you know why they come to you, Cole?" I shook my head. "They want me to help them," I said. Dr. Malcolm leaned forward. "And do you want to help them?" I thought about it. Did I? I didn't think so, and I wasn't sure I did. "Yes, I want to help them," I said. "I think I do," I said finally. That night, I saw the boy again. He told me his story. He had died in a fire. His parents had always blamed themselves. "They think it was their fault," he said. But it wasn't. He looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. "Tell them," he said. The next day, I did. I found his parents. I told them what he had told me. At first, they didn't believe me, but then something changed. The mother started crying. "I always knew it wasn't our fault," she said. "I just didn't know how to forgive myself." After that, the boy disappeared. For the first time, I felt lighter. Dr. Malcolm was right. Maybe it wasn't a curse. Maybe it really was a gift. Over the weeks, I helped more of them. The girl at school, the man in the kitchen. Each one had a story. Each one needed closure, but not all of them were kind. Some of them were angry. One night, I woke up to find a shadowy figure standing over me. "You can't help me," it growled. "You don't know what it's like." I was too scared to speak, but then I remembered what Dr. Malcolm had told me. "Ask them what they want," he had said. So I did. "What do you want from me?" I asked. The figure hesitated. Then it said, "I want to be free." With Dr. Malcolm's help, I learned how to guide them, to help them move on. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always safe. But with every story I heard, I felt like I was making a difference. Years passed, and the voices grew quieter. I still see them sometimes, the shadows, the whispers. But now, they don't scare me. I've grown up now, but I'll never forget those days. The boy in my room, the girl at school, the man in the kitchen, they were all a part of my journey. And now, when I close my eyes at night, I don't feel scared anymore. I feel at peace. If you liked my story, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.